Yeah, all good. All good. Good morning. It's a nice, beautiful spring morning here. We've been for a nice, peaceful, really early morning walk. It's a beautiful spring morning day. And I was doing a bit of reflecting on some of the lessons I've learned, life lessons in football. And one of the most important things I've learned is most people are too busy living their own lives. And that's one of the most liberating lessons football and life have taught me, that most people are too busy dealing with their own lives to spend too much time thinking about yours, so to speak. And I suppose from my perspective, when I was sort of younger, many years ago, I used to think a little bit different. I used to always think that people are sort of watching what you do, albeit we didn't really have social media back then like we have now. But it's still easy to think, okay, people are judging what decisions you make, they're analysing any mistakes that you might make. That it's easy to sort of get caught up in that cycle. If you make a decision that doesn't work out well, people thinking about it type thing, and it can feel the sense that the spotlight's on you, so to speak. And I think for me, throughout my life, what I've learned is that the longer I work with people, is the more I realise that people they're too preoccupied with their own concerns. They've got their own challenges, they've got their own doubts, they've got their own responsibilities, so to speak. I mean, people don't generally think, okay, well, he's doing what, and so on and so forth. They've got their own stuff going on, and I think for me, it's kind of liberating, really, to think in a way that they've got their own hopes and aspirations. It doesn't mean people don't notice what you do, so to speak, but it does mean that the scrutiny that we imagine is probably far greater than the scrutiny that actually exists, so to speak. That's kind of my take on it. And I've seen this repeatedly in football. For example, a player makes a move to a certain club and assumes everyone's sort of thinking about it, dwelling on it, or they make a mistake in a game and they think other people are dwelling on it type thing. The player often carries or can carry that longer than anyone else. They carry it in their own mind more than anyone else ever cares to think about. And we can spend a great deal of time worrying about what other people think, whether they approve, what their thoughts are, whether they're judging the path we've taken. But the truth is, most people are trying to make sense of their own lives. And looking back on my own journey, where I've made my own decisions, where it may not have been conventional to anybody else. I mean, for me, I've sort of said before that, for the most part, when I sort of finished school and I was just a street footballer, so to speak, and I ended up playing some state league in Sydney and did some factory jobs, did some of my own sort of independent study here and there, and eventually got a role doing some sort of like a clerical role for the Commonwealth DPP at the time for a year or so, and saved enough money to sort of travel to Europe and the UK to have a go at football and so on and so forth. And I've made different decisions throughout my life, to go into coaching, teaching, higher education, and studying new ideas, being a lifelong learner to evolve, at least the way I see evolve. And there has been times where you do wonder what other people think. But with experience, I came to realise that the opinions that mattered most were my own, and the people that matter to me, the closest people to me. And that, for me, is incredibly freeing experience, where it allows you to make decisions based on your own values rather than imagined judgment, what anybody else is thinking. It allows you to focus more on living life and less on managing other people's perceptions. And it reminds you that the noise you hear is often coming from your own mind. And football was a way of teaching me that lesson. And look, I'm not here to make recommendations, suggestions to anybody else. It's just my own perspective and reflection. But football has a way of teaching that life very clearly for me. The game moves on, life moves on. And the most important thing is to stay connected to what matters to you. And that was one of those valuable lessons that I learned in the game, sort of, carried on with me throughout life. But it's always good to hear your perspective as well.